mendelspod.com, advancing life science research, connecting people and ideas.
We're here at the Open Science Summit on day 2, taking place at the Computer Science History Museum in Mountain View, California. This morning, some of the highlights, we first heard from Misha Angrist, who participated in the Personal Genome Project and talked about how antiquated the policies are for dealing with sharing of data, privacy issues. And we also heard from Radi Darmanik, the Chief Scientific Officer for Complete Genomics, who shared with us what his company is doing, the fact that they've sequenced genomes from 5,000 people and have a lot of data. Yesterday was a very full day, went till after 6 p.m. Some of the highlights there, we heard from Murray Rust, who is working with the UK's Open Science organization known as Open Knowledge Foundation. He was very exciting, a lot of ideas there. And we also had a very interesting discussion about patents in the morning. We heard from 2 patent attorneys. The first one advocates the absolute abolishment of the patent system, and the second shared results of a demonstration game where he showed that a patent system hampers innovation as opposed to using an open common system.
I always have my favorite battle axes to grind, right? So probably the intellectual property, the future or the lack thereof of IP, and kind of challenging the conventional wisdom of the patent system was really, I think, was pretty strong and powerful, kind of starting to break through people's the real misinformation campaign that has been waged successfully since the 1980s, or kind of force-feeding people this bogus idea of what intellectual property is. We're starting to expose the myths, show how it's actually functioning, and the harmful, things that it's has been leading to. So I think that was a kind of a wake-up call. We'll see how many people we reach.
Open science is where I think New Zealand needs to go next. I mean, we've come a long way with open government. We have declaration announced this year. We have principles for government open information. But what we don't have as yet is the scientific community coming with us in this. And also, this is probably maybe the edgiest conference that I could have gone to as well. So that's completely worthwhile.
We have a huge amount of scientific and medical information, much of which is going to lead directly to improvements in the human condition and the condition of the planet. And much of this is only getting out to a very small number of people, those people who work in universities, and not the rest of the community. And that's not because we can't get it out technically, it's because we can't get it out politically.
So what's the solution? A political solution?
It has to be a political solution. It has to be coupled with an appropriate business model, and those business models exist. But we've got to get enough people worried and keen to get this information out, because getting it out is more important than preserving the way we do communication business in science at the moment. Conventionally, what's happened is that there were print journals, and those print journals were in particular specialities, and that was fine for the up to the, say, end of the 20th century. But now all of that's electronic. There's no reason to have it all stored in particular places like that. People want to pick and choose those areas that they're interested in, a paper from here, a paper from there, and so on, rather than to have it served up by an old-fashioned portal created for the benefit of the publisher and not for the benefit of the reader.
We really want to be able to take the biggest, baddest pieces of biotech equipment now, the kind of stuff you only find in laboratories, academic places, industry, demystify them and put them in the hands of common people, let people find their own uses for it.
Okay, so by common people, some examples are?
We kind of have really almost 4 or 5 tribes of biocurious, and some of it's just hobbyists or people who are curious about how things work. Some of them are these more traditional citizen scientists, almost in the mold of Thomas Jefferson, where people are trying to figure out something that they're interested in and maybe do something with it. We have quite a few entrepreneurs. This is Silicon Valley, And so everybody's got a startup in their heart that they would like to see happen. And the biotech space is this big new space. And a lot of people are maybe professional scientists or academicians who want to work on a project that is not a formal project that they're going to do at work, that they want to do personally. Probably about a third of the people who have showed up at the space, been interested in it, are people who are in high tech, who are kind of looking to make this jump over to biotech. And it's interesting, people who like gadgets, they like doing the next big thing, how does this work? But a lot of times they're motivated less by kind of a startup thing and more by how can we change the world and save the world. And that's a very interesting kind of distinction between those two tribes. Do people want to be making the next Farmville? Or do they want to be going ahead and doing something somebody's going to grow on a farm and help stop starvation? That's a nice choice. And I was so struck by the mix of people, both the speakers and the audience, that are these really high value, big thinkers that you don't get together anywhere else, and that you get to go and sit down and just kind of hoist a beer with. And so it was a real kick for me that BioCurious was kind of the spot to go after the first night of the conference. But getting to hear so many different viewpoints from industry, from academics, from policy wonks who are really doing these things, and from people who are kind of doing this bottom-up, disruptive, hey, here's a great new idea, let's pitch it out there and see who swings at it. Man, you cannot beat it. This is easily in one of my top 3 favorite conferences, and I go to a lot of conferences.
It's great. It's actually a lot more impressive than the last conference, which was in Berkeley. The thing I really like about this is that there are a lot of demo tables where a lot of young electronics experts are showing off augmented reality hardware and also robots, cheap instruments. They had a cheap spectrophotometer, which is used to measure the concentrations of chemicals that are dissolved in liquid, which is a pretty expensive tool normally, and this guy was able to build one with just a handful of cheap parts. So I've been very impressed by the demo tables, and some of the talks have been really impressive. We had Barry Bune in here from Collaborative Drug Discovery, and a few other talks on open source drug discovery, and that was really exciting. These guys are showing how you can discover a drug for much less money than a normal drug company would. So normally it takes about $1 billion to discover a drug, and they pointed to at least 8 examples where small companies that have just a few employees have actually discovered working medications on a shoestring budget. And so this may be the wave of the future for the drug industry. And if there's anything from this meeting that I'm likely to follow up on, it's these companies that are doing shoestring drug research and also working much more collaboratively with other organizations to discover these drugs.